Hello and welcome to another episode of Up and In. We're back from a week's hiatus. Last week we had WrestleMania, we had Easter, a bunch of things going on, so we did end up taking last week off. However, as always, it's me, Black Elmore, my main man Hack. Hack, how's your week been this week?
Good week. Coming off the Easter weekend, WrestleMania. Really, this week flew by. I was living that high life the whole week.
Hey man, I'll tell you what, April is one of the best sports months in the year. Obviously, March Madness finishes up. Major League Baseball is in full swing. You got WrestleMania. You got the NFL Draft. A bunch of stuff kicking off in April. So, absolutely love this month in sports. NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. It's all going on right now. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Right now, only the Phillies and the Cubs are playing. Last time I checked, it was a 1-1 game. I believe it's in the third inning. But hey, welcome to Up and In. We're here to talk baseball with you over the next hour. Today we're going to be going over Yankees Mets talk. Who really runs New York? Does Juan Soto regret his decision to move to the other New York team? We'll talk a little bit deeper about the AL Central, and then we're also going to talk about the Seattle Mariners Mount Rushmore. Today is going to be the first episode of our Mount Rushmore series. Every week we're going to pick another team, American League, National League, and go over our Mount Rushmore for each team, past, present, stars included. But Hack, anything on your mind that's been going on this week? What's on your mind about baseball right now?
I mean, to me, the big news this week was the Devin Williams getting demoted. That's one of the bigger free agent signings. Not only did he lose his closer job, I mean, he's been atrocious this season as he has an 11.25 ERA. It's like he shaved his beard and his superpowers went away.
Look, man, Devin Williams, I think he'll sort it out. I think it's a whole new team for him. Honestly, the other night he got booed off the mound as Yankee fans were chanting for Luke Weaver. It has been announced that Luke Weaver will be taking over the closing role. Aaron Boone has stated that he may come in earlier in the game for high leverage situations, which would result in other members of the bullpen closing that game. But Luke Weaver's been fantastic, man. 0 ERA through his 13 innings this so far this season. But Devin Williams, like you said, he's having an absolutely atrocious season. 11.25 ERA, as you stated before. He also has career worst marks in strikeout rate, whiff rate, and walk rate. So he is just overall across the board not having a great season. Hopefully taking a step back and putting him in some not as high leverage situations will allow him to kind of get more comfortable, get his stuff back. I wouldn't be surprised if we might even see a little bit of a drop down. But who knows? I mean, the Yankees have a lot going on right now. Like I said, they are first in the division. It's kind of been back and forth with the Red Sox in the division. The Blue Jays were up there for a little bit. Anything crazy going on in the AL East that's really like, are the Yankees still the favorite to win the AL East in your mind?
I think I like Boston. I think we talked in the beginning of the season. I like Boston to win it. I think the Yankees are doing well. But I think when you get deeper into the numbers, a lot of this is just they had a hot start. And their stuff, you take out maybe the first 6 games, they're not as good as their record says they are right now. They other than Goldschmidt, Judge, and Ben Rice, nobody's really hitting on that team. And the pitching staff, short of Max Fried, we'll talk about him a little later, but like short of him and Carlos Rodon, he's doing what Carlos Rodon does. Nobody else in that pitching staff, other than Luke Weaver, if you're not winning games, he can't affect the game, is doing anything. I think they'll make a move at the trade deadline, but they need some of their stars. They need Bellinger to settle in. He's batting 200. Jazz is under 200 last time I checked. It's just not been a good all around. It's just Aaron Judge is doing so well that he's carrying that. That team's being carried by Judge, Fried, and Weaver right now.
Yeah, and I'm just checking in on Jazz Chisholm right now, his stats. Because, he started off the year really hot. I know he's been slumping a little bit lately. Here we go. Yeah, right now he's down to $175 batting average. So after his hot start with hitting home runs and power numbers, not a great last couple of weeks for him. But how about the fact that Aaron Judge, though, absolutely fantastic season for him, leading the league in hits, leading the league in average. What is he? I know he's, top 10 in home runs right now. How many does he have sitting right now? Right now he has 7 home runs. League leader is with 10. What are we looking at for Aaron Judge in the possible Triple Crown?
I mean, I think it's almost a yearly occurrence. If Aaron Judge is healthy, he's going to be in the Triple Crown race. The only thing that can ever hold him back is, do the players in front of him get on base enough for him to get to compete in the RBI race? Right now, the Yankees have enough hot players around him that he's able to stay up there in the RBIs. We'll see if that continues. History says it will, because he's going to hit 60 home runs. So there's 60 RBIs right there.
Well, you know what, while we're on the topic of the Yankees, might as well just dive into it. All right, we've had a lot of conversation, especially in the offseason, about Juan Soto, where he was going to go. Was he going to stay in New York? Ended up signing with the Mets. A lot of talk early in the season about if Juan Soto would live to kind of regret this decision and regret this choice. So let's kind of take a quick little dive in. Here we go. So this is through 27 games, comparing Juan Soto's seasons. Obviously, with the Yankees, he started off hot, batting .316. Right now, he's batting .235. Home runs are down, RBIs are down. But the win-loss, the record is there. Did Juan Soto make the right move switching to the Mets?
I mean, for this year, and I'll say for the next 4 to 5 years going forward, yes. After that, I can't predict what either team's going to look like. But I just told you about how little I believe in the Yankees' ability to hold first place by their ineptitude on offense and defense. When I look across the way at the Mets, you're playing with Lindor, who's having a good year for him and a great year for others. He's playing with Alonso, who's out of his mind right now. As good as Aaron Judge is doing, Alonso is having a great start to the season. And the pitching staff in New York, their top 4 starters, as much as they don't have big names, and, you know, as a Phillies fan, I don't want to be like they're good. They're pitching into the 5th, 6th inning and getting it to the bullpen, and the Mets are winning games. Soto is cold, and they're 19-9. It's the mistake or the regret I think he has is he's the face of the Mets. And on the Yankees, no matter how good he does or bad he did, the Yankees are Aaron Judge's team. And he was able to settle into it. Sometimes it's nice to be in a shadow. Yeah, some players like it better in the shadow than in the sun. And right now he's in the sun. And some of his quotes show that maybe in Washington, we chalked it up that he was young. In San Diego, it was like, that's weird, but maybe he wants to go back east. And now we're seeing like maybe he needs to grow a little bit, mature into being a leader of a big city like New York.
Well, I mean, I would look when I look at Soto's decision. I don't really necessarily hate on him leaving the Yankees. I mean, you look at last year's team. The Mets had a better series against the Dodgers than the Yankees did. In the playoffs, they went 6 games versus the Yankees going 5. I think that played a little bit into it. I think you looked at the Yankees pitching staff. Garrett Cole is aging. Nestor Cortez is Mr. Inconsistent. And then, of course, you got Carlos Rodon, who you never quite know after his injury how he's going to come back. Obviously, this year having a fantastic season. But I think kind of like you said about being the guy, I think that move to the Mets is absolutely, like I said, I think Soto going to the Mets was completely because he wanted to be that guy. I think that the pressure might be getting to him a little early in the season. But like I said, the Mets are winning. He threw a guy at home plate actually showing some, like I said, mostly when we talk about Juan Soto's defensive abilities, we're showing errors, mistakes. It was nice to see him actually do something positive. Obviously, it was against your Phillies hack, so I'm sorry to talk about that. But gunning a guy out at home plate in a big, huge play. Let's talk about where both teams are at right now. Obviously, post-trade. Yankees sit in first place in the AL East. They've outscored their opponents by 38 runs, 16-11 overall record. And then we got the Mets, first place in the NL East, 19-9 record, plus 36 runs. I mean, like I said, minus today, the Mets jumped out on the Nationals today. Nationals battled back, fought hard, ended up winning in the bottom of the 9th, killing my parlay today. I don't want to talk about it. That's the team we got to talk about later, too, is the Nationals at some point. Is, you know, they're young up-and-coming guys are starting to kind of produce and show what they're made of, and that's the team we got to talk about here in the future. But do you think, who do you think won? Do you think the Mets are the overall winner in this Soto sweepstakes, or do you think the Yankees were able to use that money that they were saved from signing him and were able to get better players that are going to help them overall?
I mean, right now, the Mets won to me easily. No matter how down he's doing now, you say the money spent. Max Fried's having a great start for the Yankees. So without him, their start would look a lot worse. Their pitching staff would be in real trouble. But they signed Bellinger and Goldschmidt to that money, and it's average. You take that. The Mets have the best player in that we're going to talk about and like where you spent the money. And he's Juan Soto. There's a reason everybody was willing to give him that much money. You can't lose Juan Soto and win. That's just not – it's not possible. But the Yankees at least used the money, I guess, smart enough to be in first place right now.
See, I argue with you on the whole. You can't win without Soto because the Padres seem to be doing a pretty good job of it. See, if I'm Juan Soto, that's where I would have stayed. And I know he wants to be, kind of like Tony said in the chat here, wants to be the face of the organization. You get that having money and the privilege, but not the responsibilities. I think in San Diego, he could have really benefited from that. Having Felix, having Tatis Jr. there, having Manny Machado there, having him there, that would have been the perfect Three Musketeers. I think that combination, if they stayed together, would have been the perfect recipe to kind of overthrow the Dodgers in the NL West, who the Giants, by the way, are leading the division. I don't want to forget about that. But anything else kind of about the Yankees, Mets, and as far as this trade goes, Juan Soto, or anything kind of just about those teams in general?
I mean, I think this argument, and even I'm not a fan of either organization, but I think their fans would agree that it's the first one to the World Series. That's who's going to win this one. Like when Soto jumped, the only way for the Mets to jump the Yankees in New York, to my basic knowledge of that town, is you need to go to the World Series and win it. That's why you signed him. Right now, I don't think there's an argument on who has the better roster. So, like, the Mets are the team that's looking good. You both have to go through the Dodgers at some point, but, like, the Mets get to the World Series. Whoever wins it, and if the Yankees win it first, then that's a real bad luck for the Mets.
All right, Hack, I told you before we started, we are not going to mention the Dodgers today, all right? They feel like they fill up every single episode on every single show. We got to avoid saying that dirty D word. That sounds real weird to say it that way. But we're going to try our best to avoid talking about the Dodgers today, okay? Because like I said, they seem to own every single media outlet, so we're not going to give them their peace of mind today. Before we jump into some AL Central talk, let's talk a little bit about the standings. Which of these 6 division leaders is the most surprising to you? All right, we got the Yankees leading the AL East. I don't think there's really much surprise there. We got the Detroit Tigers leading the Central, which we'll talk about here shortly. We got the Mariners tied for first place with the Rangers in the West. We got the Mets in the NL East, the Cubs in the Central, and of course my Giants, who walked it off again today against Texas. A full game up on the Padres in the NL West. Which of those 6 teams do you think surprises you the most?
The Giants. I think that's
really okay.
I mean, I know some people, I know you might say Detroit, they were a playoff team. And the other teams in there, and this isn't a slight at the Giants roster. It's just you're in a division with the Dodgers,
some heavy hitters,
Diamondbacks, and the Padres, and you're the one in first. Like if I said the name that we're not supposed to speak, isn't in first place, most people would say the Padres, and the ones that don't say the Padres are going to say the Diamondbacks, and then there's you that would say the Giants.
What can I say?
For me, it's the Giants, and I mean, the way they're playing, that's Giant baseball. So this could be a long-standing thing. Talk about cold players in places. Willie Adams has been he's been real bad. Like one of the worst major league players in this season. And he's not that guy. So when he heats up, it's only going to make the Giants better.
Yeah, and like I said, the Giants half a game lead over the Dodgers, game and a half over the Padres right now. They got the best run differential in the division at plus 28. I mean, this team is absolutely cooking. Really, the entire division is sitting pretty. I mean, besides obviously the Rockies, who are 4-23. I hate to be a Rockies fan right now, but I'm sure that'll turn around. They got lots of young and up and coming talent that once they get a couple more seasons in them, I think the Rockies might have a little bit of say in the division, maybe not winning it, but might be talking some wild card here in a couple of years. But, I think, for me, I had the Cubs. Actually, I had the Brewers taking the division, but lately the Cubs have been absolutely playing out of their mind. The Mets had such a terrible start to last season. I wasn't sure what to expect this year, but they're absolutely showing out. I think, to me, the biggest surprise is Seattle. They had such a slow start. They were not scoring runs. Pitching was the starting pitching was a bit iffy. And now here they are, a game up on Texas, 16-12 record. They're outscoring their opponents by 15 runs. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're on a 2-game win streak. I mean, the Mariners, who we're going to talk about later on this episode a little more extensively as far as their history and their Mount Rushmore, the Mariners, I think, are finally putting a product on the field that the Seattle fans have been hoping for the last couple seasons. And I see you rocking the Mariners hat, of course.
Yes, for the Rushmore. I mean, I agree. I watched. It's funny saying that. I tuned into one of their games this week to see, how, because they have been hot. And I just look at that lineup, and it's another one of the teams I feel like we had the same conversation last year. And last year I told you the same thing. The Astros are coming. The Astros are coming. And it took them a while. It took till the All-Star break for it to catch up, for that offense to drag them down. But the offense is an anchor. It's Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh. And really, Julio Rodriguez is, as much as I love him, I mean, like, I play fantasy baseball. I draft him every league I'm in. I love this guy. But he bats 235. Like, if
he's
he was
196 right now. He's 196 this season.
You can't. So that's your star. That's the guy that's your 2. And Raleigh is a legit 3-hole. But when your 2-hole's batting under 200, how many RBI chances is your 3-hole getting? It's just not. It's not sustainable. It's just not. Baseball doesn't work that way. You can have you can piece together things for 30 days, 40 days, but around 60, 70, 80, 90, it falls apart. You have to score runs.
Yeah, I mean, Randy Arozarena not having the season I thought he would have. He has 4 home runs. Cal Raleigh is really the focal point of the offense. He's got 10 home runs, 17 RBIs. He's still only hitting 229, though. I mean, no one on the team besides J.P. Crawford is really hitting that well. And I wouldn't even say J.P. Crawford is hitting that great at 277. He's capable of much better season than that. So we'll see if the Mariners can maintain it. Obviously, Texas has had some struggles with their starting pitching, and they really struggle on the road, 5-10 on the road right now. And obviously, you cannot have a losing record like that on the road if you're going to compete for a division. And I think the second most surprising team has got to be Detroit. And with Detroit being the division leader, they're the only team that's actually outscoring their opponents this season in the division. They're plus 42, and then Cleveland, who's in second, is minus 18 compared to their opponents. So let's take a little dive into NL Central, just since we're talking about, or sorry, AL Central, since we're already talking about them, we're already here. Obviously, Detroit 8-2 over the last 10, best record in the American League. If I told you a month into the season that the Detroit Tigers would have the best record in the American League, would you say I was lying or full of shit, or would you say that sounds about right?
I'd call you a little crazy, but once you told me we were going to talk about this, and I think it was right before we went on our break for Easter, Cottrell was talking about Cleveland. And so I started looking through the AL Central. And, I mean, Detroit's pitching staff, it's hard to find in the AL a better 4 than Skubal, Mize, Olsen, and Flaherty right now. I know the names don't jump out at you, but what they're doing on the mound is really good. It's great. It's better than good. It's great. And the offense, looking into that, as all their young players, Detroit's had a whole bunch of young players like the Riley Greens, the Torkelsons, that were supposed to be good. And for years, they were going to make the jump. Well, what if this is the year they all make the jump together? This team, I don't want to go too soon on it, but the Orioles were once a young team. 3 years ago, when Rashman was just starting and Henderson was just starting, they were they're young. And now 3-4 years later, they're disappointing this year, but look at what we expect out of them. So maybe this is Detroit's turn the corner moment.
Hey, man, they got great starting pitching, just like you said. Casey Mize with a 2.12 ERA. You got Tarek Skubal, 2.34. And then you got Jackson Jobe, 2.7 ERA right now. Absolutely just slicing through opponents' batting orders. So do you think Detroit is going to be able to maintain this? I mean, the offense is looking decent. Torkelson is looking powerful. Starting pitching, obviously, early in the season is looking great. I expect them to, only get better as the season goes on. Do you think this is Detroit's division? I mean, is it too early to say that, or is their pitching just so dominant right now that you can see them leading the rest of the way?
I think it's early to say it's their division, but the pitching has been so good that if they can just maintain that level, they're not going to be out of the race for right now. The AL's down. Nobody's running away with it. The NL, I think, if we look at power rankings generally around baseball, the NL dominates the power rankings. So with this pitching staff, with some of the bad offenses in the AL, there's no reason to think that Detroit can't win a majority of their series is going forward. And that puts you in the conversation for best record in the AL. Yeah.
And then, obviously right behind their tails, we got Cleveland, the Guardians. They have lost their last two games. And then, pitching what was their strength last year, and their pitching rotation has not been great this year. None of their starting pitchers all of their starting pitchers are almost the starting pitchers' average ERA is almost 5. They're just not able to eliminate run scoring from their opponents. What's going on in Cleveland, Hack? I mean, do you have any insight as far as what you think might be going on? I mean, Stephen Kwan still leading off the Guardians lineup. We've got 9-game hitting streak going on, 354 batting average. If you look at Jose Ramirez, he's got 4 home runs this month. But if you take away his 3 home run game, the dude's power is completely eliminated. I don't know what's going on, if it's just a rough start to the season. What do you think is going on in Cleveland?
I mean, I think if my memory serves me correct, I think Jose Ramirez started kind of slow last year too. And it was like maybe he's lost a step, and then it got warmer, and all of a sudden Jose Ramirez was Jose Ramirez again. Stephen Kwan's off to a really good year, and I think I saw, he has 4 home runs, which for Stephen Kwan, that's a power surge this early in the season. So he's really doing well. And Kyle Manzardo has stepped up 7 home runs. He leads the team in RBIs with 18. They're scoring enough runs to win in the AL Central. But and this is kind of crazy. Looking at their team compared to Detroit, right now, sorry to Cottrell, but it looks like Detroit has the edge. Like the playoff battle-tested Guardians, like Josh Naylor, they're playing in other cities now. This isn't the same Guardians team we've seen the last couple of years. This offseason, they had a little changeover. And for once, I actually can't remember the last time a Guardians pitching staff has been this average. It's been like I can't remember it. It's got to be over a decade since they haven't had like a Shane Bieber, the big beat as your ace. It's not working.
No, absolutely not. And like I said, their bullpen has been absolutely phenomenal. Their bullpen is one of the reasons why they're actually keeping up with the Tigers. They're 5-1 in one-run games and 2-0 in extra innings. So if they can get the lead to the bullpen, they seem to be able to hold those leads and kind of carry it through the win column. But just like you said, they're 7-2 against the Central. But against every other division, they're under 500, and they're 3-3 in interleague play. You got to be able to have winning records against a couple of the other divisions if you want a chance at the playoffs for sure. And then of course you got the Kansas City Royals. Obviously Bobby Witt Jr. He's hitting 318. He's got an 18-game hitting streak right now. They've won 6 of the last 7, along with starting pitching. Reagans is the only pitcher they have with an ERA over 3. But he is 5th, or he's 3rd in strikeouts in the majors. So he still has that dominant stuff. He's just going to hit hard a little bit. I think his off-speed stuff just isn't quite locating as well as it usually is right now. But do you think Kansas City, now they're 14-15, just under 500, 4.5 games back. To me, it's a 3-team division. I think it's got to come down to the Tigers, the Guardians, and the Kansas City Royals. What's going on with the Royals? Do you see any like holes in their lineup, or what do you got going on in Kansas City?
I mean, I think their entire lineup's a whole that's not named Bobby Witt Jr. He's batting. I just gotta look this up. I had it earlier. I know he's batting 315. I believe the next closest batting average to him is the third baseman, Garcia, batting 274. And then after that, there's a part-time player batting 280, but like the rest of them are under like 250. That they have the worst offense of the three teams. And that, like, I think last year when they made the playoffs, that was exposed that their offense wasn't quite ready. They didn't really address it in the offseason. Like, I like Jonathan Indica, but that's not a player that comes and saves your offense. So in terms of this division, I think they're the team to me that's on the outside looking in. I think Detroit has the talent. Cleveland has the experience, and they've been there with their bullpen. They, to me, have the Jose Ramirez. He's the king of that division. Is Bobby Witt enough alone? With the pitching staff has been lights out again this year, but that offense is really, really bad.
Yeah, I mean, they just took 2 out of 3 from the Astros, but here are the scores of those games. Royals 2, Astros 0. Royals 2, Astros 0. Astros 7, Royals 3. So they were able to win the series against the Astros strictly on the back of their pitching. They only scored 7 runs in 3 games, and they only gave up 7 runs in 3 games. So the pitching, here's the thing about pitching. Pitching is going to get you there, but you're going to need your offense at some point to help out because pitching is not going to show up every day. Whether it's an injury, whether it's a cold weather game, whether it's windy, whether it's raining, whether the wind's blowing out, whether you're playing a hot LA team that we're not going to mention. So you got to be able to put up runs to help your pitchers out. If you can score 4 or 5 runs a game with the pitching they have, they're going to be dangerous in the Central.
That's one of your points from with the Guardians being 7-2 in the division. That to me is why this division. Your record against this division counts more than any other division play. Because most of these teams, when you stack them up outside of the division, you don't project them to win series against the other division leaders.
True.
You don't. When I tell you Detroit's going to play the Yankees, I know it hasn't worked out on the field this way. Detroit's hung with them. But on paper, the Yankees are favored over Detroit. The Seattle, you think, is a better team than Detroit. It's just they have to win their division games.
Yeah, and like I said, they also need to win on the road. There is not one team in the AL Central that has a winning record away from home. Detroit's 5-7, Cleveland 7-8, Kansas City and Minnesota are both 3-10, and then obviously the White Sox, who we even forgets in the division sometimes, is 3-13 on the road. So like I said, they got to find ways to win out of the division games, and they got to win on the road. But we're going to jump over really quick to Minnesota. Minnesota, they're right now, they are 12-16. They're on a 3-game win streak, 6-4 over their last 10. They've been outscored by their opponents by 2 runs this season. What's going on in Minnesota? I mean, there were people that were talking about Minnesota possibly being the team to beat in the Central, but now it seems like they're struggling to even. Obviously, they just, like I said, swept the Angels, and they had a series against the White Sox right before that. So the only reason they even have 9 wins right now is because the last 6 games have been against teams that are both under 500. So what's going on in Minnesota, Hack? Is starting pitching the issue? Is the hitting the issue? What are you seeing?
I mean, I think injuries. I think they're the most hurt team in the AL Central. But that only bails you out of so much. I think the pitching, other than Lopez was hurt early, but he's been their best pitcher so far. The rest of them, Ober started out really cold. Joe Ryan's striking batters out, but he's not. That's about all he's doing is getting strikeouts. When they're hitting the ball, they're making solid contact, and you have to avoid that. But when I tell you, like, they're team leaders, I was going to go over this with the batting average, 237, Ty France. That's your team leader.
So Minnesota's team average is 224 right now. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
It's I don't know how you can't win in baseball I don't care how good your pitchers are. Your best hitter is batting 237.
Yeah, that's definitely not going to do it.
And the best OBP, which I believe is probably a more indicative stat, if you want to be like,
I'm a big OBP guy. I'm with you.
330. That's not good. 330 is a 9-hole hitter, an 8-hole hitter, and that's the best on your team. And
it's also crazy that they have a great team ERA. Minnesota's team ERA right now is 3.79. They're just not scoring runs. They have a better ERA than the Dodgers, the Yankees, which that's not surprising. Cleveland, Boston, Chicago, Arizona. Like, these are all teams that are, winning ball clubs. Some of them are in front of their divisions, and they have worse team ERAs than the Twins do. But it seems like that's been the issue with Minnesota over the last probably decade, is they can't put it together offensively. I figure since like the 2010s. Talk about me. Talk to me.
It's the whole division. It's this whole division. Like, I when we were going to do this deep dive, I started looking at them, like everybody. And I could tell you to build your all-star team from the AL Central, and that team can't compete with the top team, and they can't compete with the team we're not talking about. They can't compete with the Padres. They can't compete with the Phillies. They can't compete with the Mets. They can't compete with the Cubs right now. You will have a pitching staff that, granted, those teams will have a tough time getting to 5 runs on, but they're going to get to 3, 4. You can't find 9 good offensive players at the positions. You might not be able to find 9 offensively good players. I don't care. You can just act like a catcher can all of a sudden play shortstop. Like we've talked about Kansas City. They have Bobby Witt Jr. We talk about Cleveland, Stephen Kwan, Jose Ramirez, and the Mendoza's hot. The White Sox, nobody. The Twins, nobody. That leaves us with Detroit. There's not 5 Detroit Tigers to fill out this lineup to hit against the Padres pitching staff, the Cubs. It's sad because we want to be excited. Like, I want to be excited about Bobby Witt and Witt Jr. I like the Cleveland Guardians because I remember the Cleveland Indians and rooting for those good teams. I remember Minnesota being good. You want Detroit because they get into it. Their fans, you saw the playoff games. They were like crazy there. But this division is the only reason it's good is because somebody has to win it. And every stat you talked about proves that point. They don't win when they leave their stadiums. They don't win outside of their division. It's literally, we need a third conference. So you guys get to play and get a playoff. And every once in a while, they take a second wild card. I know somebody in the chat will tell me, they got this many teams. We never talk about those teams making an impact in the playoffs. We want to see Tariq Skubal pitch, but we don't think Detroit's beating. They ain't taking out the Yankees. They ain't taking out the Rangers. They're not taking out the.
They might take out the Mariners. They might take out the Mariners.
Well, yeah. If the Mariners stayed this hot all year, though, you wouldn't think that.
That's true.
We would be like,
going off of recent history.
The 1 seed you gave a bye, and we're going to be talking about another 1 seed that got eliminated in their first round. And it's just sad because you would think somebody would want to go there, but a whole division, not one team can put together a really good, let's get excited about this offense.
What do you think is the reason for, and honestly, if you really look at it across the board, both sides of it, the Centrals always seem to be, NL Central and AL Central, both seem to be the weakest of the divisions. Do you think it's a straight geographical thing, or do you think it's just coincidence?
So and I know that it might get skewed because I'm going to talk about one team in the NL that skews their things, because the Cardinals have been a great legendary franchise. So when we start stacking titles and things like that, other than the Yankees, it's hard. I don't know if another team in baseball can go title for title with the Cardinals, and they've done it throughout decades.
Well, the Dodgers, of course, but
the Dodgers have a long gap.
That's true. That's true.
The Cardinals don't have gaps. They've won. They might only win one or two, but they win it in every 10 years, every 15 years. The Cardinals find a way. Very similar to the Giants. Like, they just find a way, and you're like, how'd they do it? Who won that World Series? It was the Cardinals. But when we look at the teams, the Brewers have been there. The Brewers have had an offense. They've spent money. They have Christian Yelich, Jackson Chourio. He's not going to leave. They've had stars there. The Reds have had stars through their organization. Now, the last couple of years, they've gone on a downtrend. But before let's say 2010, the Reds were a legit, had big time stars coming out of that organization. The Pirates are the Pirates. We know we don't have to get into them, and the Cubs, it's crazy because we were going to talk about the Cubs one week, and I was looking. The Cubs have never spent $200 million on a free agent.
This sounds.
The Cubs have
never. Sounds right.
But it's crazy to think the Cubs are so old, because it was like, are they going to re-sign Kyle Tucker, and he might just be too expensive for them. But the Cubs have been the Cubs for forever. Even without winning, we don't look at the Cubs the way we look at Kansas City. So I really think it's that. When I was a kid, I feel like that was the heyday, late 80s, 90s for the AL Central. That's when the Tigers were kind of good. The Twins were winning World Series. The George Brett, that might be even later, the 70s with George Brett, the Pine Tar. You remember him flipping out, the guy running out of the dugout, yelling at the ump. But it's been a while. The Royals won it maybe 6-7 years ago in a fluke with Salvador Perez winning. But that's just a bad. I think, yes, it's hard in them small cities, but nobody, not one owner there wants to win.
Hey, well, just for what you were talking about, obviously the Yankees have 27 World Series titles. The Cardinals are ranked second in the Major League Baseball with 11. And there's a tie at third with the Red Sox, Athletics, and Red Sox and Athletics with 9. So, yeah, I mean, pretty much it's Yankees and then Cardinals as far as historical. I just can't remember a time in my life, and I'm 34, where the AL Central was good. I just can't think of a time when I can remember, dang, that's AL Central the NL Central was top to bottom, a top division. Like we look at, the NL East or AL East this year, from Yankees all the way down, well, maybe not so much Tampa Bay, but 4 of the 5 teams, great squads. Same with obviously the NL West. I cannot think of a year or a time period where the AL Central had that. But we do have one more team to talk about. We won't spend too much time on them, but the Chicago White Sox, sitting at the bottom of the division. And honestly, it's not as bad as it looks. They have a better ERA than the Phillies, the Cubs, and Arizona, all teams with way better records than they are. The problem is they can't hit. They have a team, the MLB worst batting average. Heck, take a guess for me what you think the White Sox batting average is at. It's the Major League Baseball's worst.
202.
Dang, that was close. 209 as a team average. You are not going to win anything with a 209 batting average as a team. It does not matter what's going on, how good your pitching is or nothing. You're not winning. You're not winning a lot. I don't even know if there's pieces on their team that teams are going to want to trade for. I mean, obviously, Louis Robert Jr., we talked about him earlier in the season being someone that could be a focal point of teams towards the trade deadline. But even he's not out and not performing this year. The defense looks bad. Pitching is like I said, pitching is okay. It's just they can't score their way out of a paper bag. I don't know if you have any opinions on the White Sox, if they're really even worth your time to dig into. What do you think?
I mean, do they have pieces? At the trade deadline, every team needs pitching. So it's more, if you're a White Sox fan, do you trust their front office to bring back something that, because we're at the point where you're not getting somebody's top prospect. Like I know as a Phillies fan last year, I wanted to give them our, let's say, number 3 pitcher, number 4th ranked pitcher for Robert. I don't care. I want this guy. This year, you would be lucky to get our 14th ranked pitcher for that guy because he doesn't stay healthy. He hasn't shown. I was hoping this year he'd come out on fire to get traded, like to get to the big stage. And he looks just like whatever. I'm content playing here. I can't name. I think like if you remember the meme when Vargas, I think it was, got traded there, and they showed him in the dugout. That just to me sums up the Chicago White Sox. That's how most people feel about them.
He got to go on vacation early, and he still got a ring. Just saying.
Yeah, but he had to sit in that cold dugout for months and watch them.
No, you're absolutely right. I do feel bad for that guy. But no, like I said, just like you said, Robert Jr., he's got a 148 batting average, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs. The team is just looking awful. They had a chance to win today against the A's. A's walked it off. Mason Miller looking nasty on the mound as usual. I mean, that kind of wraps up the AL Central, though. With the season a full month in, who do you think is the favorite right now to win the AL Central at the end of the season?
Right now, I would go with Cleveland just because of the record in division. It's 7-2. I just spent all that time telling you that I think the in division is going to be the biggest thing. So I have to take the team. But I do see the path that Detroit could get there. But I'm going to go with Cleveland.
Okay. Yeah, my eyes are keeping on Kansas City, man. Starting pitching is looking great. I think the offense has the potential. Salvador Perez needs to wake up a little bit. Bobby Witt Jr., man, if he can stay on his trend and if we can get a couple more pieces in there, maybe with a trade deadline, I think Kansas City can pull out the division, and that's who I'm kind of hoping for right now. Obviously, being 4.5 games back, they're still within reach, still early. First month of the season just finished up.
Okay. But we still have work. We have plenty of time in this show, and we only have the Seattle thing. So I want to ask you a question off of your thing. You said do you really believe that Kansas City is going to make a deadline move? And if you say yes, what? Because like the way they've started, where do you see? Where's the possibility of them getting that player? Who do they have to acquire what they need?
Well, that's the thing. I'm not huge into the farm system. I know Kansas City's got a mid-ranked farm system. They're nothing too crazy. Here's the thing. They just paid Bobby Witt Jr. over $288 million. And if that's a big enough incentive to somehow find a way to make this team better, say pitching, you're good. Bullpen, you're good. You need to get some more offense. You got to find someone that can replace, that can get as much production as Salvador Perez. Do I know where that comes from? I haven't been able to spotlight a player yet that's going to be that player for them. But did you have someone in mind? Like I'm trying to rack my brain who it could be that could really come in there that's going to be available at the trade deadline. Who do you think that you have in mind?
Here's even my thing. Like, let's say the Cubs decide they can't. The Cubs slide and they say we can't re-sign Kyle Tucker. So we'll trade him, man. Thank you for the 1-year rental. Can the Kansas City Royals even make that trade? Because like the Phillies can, the Mets would, the Red Sox would, with any team in the AL Central, I get paying the Bobby Witt because they all the teams in that division pay their Bobby Witt. Jose Ramirez has made a lot of money from Cleveland, but it hasn't been the issue paying the top star, maybe even the top 2 or 3 stars. It's getting the 4th and 5th guy in there. So that would be like, because now you're talking about you're competing with the Yankees. You're competing with the Phillies, the team we don't name, the Padres for these limited difference maker players. And so far, only the team that we don't name has made like the Tommy Edman moves, because that's not a big move. Like the biggest move of the ML, like to win the World Series, actually Detroit gave up one of them, was acquiring Flaherty and Edman. And at the trade deadline, we weren't talking about those two guys being like, oh my God, they got those guys. And they were the biggest thing. So it's just been a while since I saw any AL Central, and while even use any of the Central, any AL or NL Central team other than the Cubs make the big, I'm going to go for it. And I guess the St. Louis, because they don't act like a small market team.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think when I look at Kansas City, I think the pieces I see they need production at first base, need a little bit better production and the defensive ability at third base, and they need to get a designated hitter. You cannot have Kevon Biggio as your designated hitter in this day and age. When you have teams that have Shohei Ohtani and Kyle Schwarber as their DHs, guys that can actually put up power numbers and can change games with a swing of a bat, you can't. And again, Kevon Biggio, not like I said, nothing against him. I think he's fantastic second baseman. I think he's a great contact guy, but he's just not a designated hitter. His dad wasn't a designated hitter, power guy. He's not a power guy. And for me, in this day and age, you got to have someone that can put the ball out at any time. For me, a guy that I would love to see the Royals get, and I do not think it's going to happen, but it would be a name that I would love to have join the team, would be Nolan Arenado. If the Cardinals are going to continue to struggle, the last couple of years, he's been in talks. He's been in the chatter of trade rumors. Could this be the season the Cardinals are finally like, okay, let's try to get something out of him? Because he's getting older in his, further into his contract, older in his age, and farther into his career. This might be a time where another veteran, along with Salvador Perez, could really help the young core kind of calm down, come together, put a streak together, and kind of get the run needed to win the Central. That's who I would like to see go to the Royals if, in a perfect world. I also wouldn't mind having, some power numbers from, someone from Miami, like Josh Bell. He's obviously a notorious power guy who's been having some not so great numbers in Miami. But as far as looking back at last year, he's a 25 home run guy. Put him somewhere at the DH. That would be someone that I don't think would be expensive or take a lot of your assets to get in Kansas City. So someone like that, I think, would be who I'd be kind of maybe eyeing on if I was in Kansas City.
Josh Bell was the name I was gonna. When you got done with Nolan Arenado, I was good. That's a guy that, again, not expensive. Those are the moves I wish their front office. I wish they didn't have to trade. Those are guys they should have been signing. And my free agent would have been like a Matt Chapman who signed with San Francisco. Now I may have to overpay, but if I want to become a destination city, sometimes you have to overpay the first guy. It stinks that that's the way it is in baseball, but sometimes you have to. But I agree, like getting Arenado and Bell, I think that would change that lineup. Like now, Vinny P can even take days off at first sometimes. It would definitely make them better.
The other thing is, you see that they don't have a lot of pieces to trade, but like if you look at the starting rotation, like you have somebody like Seth Lugo, who had a fantastic year last year, who's having a pretty good year this year to follow that up. He's 35 years old, though. Could you expect him to be as consistent and, a big part of your, pitching staff come October? When you're 30, I'm 34. I know by the end of softball season, my shoulders, sore every year. I'm not in the conditioning as these guys are. But Seth Lugo is a piece that I could see being moved at the trade deadline, going to a team that may not be in the playoff contention, but that might be a piece that they need, or even trading him to a playoff contender while they're still in the race to get an offensive piece. So I think they do have some pieces. I just don't think they're like in your face as some of the other teams' pieces that they can kind of move. But that's the kind of what I would see. Say move Seth Lugo, and I love Seth Lugo, so I don't want to see that happen. Moving Seth Lugo would be great. Josh Bell would be great. Nolan Arenado would be a great pickup. I think that might be the pieces that push Kansas City to the brink.
If I was Kansas City, I'd be calling Baltimore, because I think one of their starting pitchers. Baltimore needs a starting pitcher, and Baltimore has plenty of young players that I believe they have control over for a couple more years. So you get those players in with Bobby Witt Jr. and hope that they all get along and form a little click up.
Absolutely. And we got 10 minutes left, folks, which means we're going to go to our special segment of the episode. And like I said, this is week 1. Every week from now on, we're going to do the Mount Rushmore of every team, top 4 players in the team's history. Some teams we're going to agree on, like today. Other teams we're going to disagree on. We're going to have some conversations about it. But we're going to start off with the Seattle Mariners this week. Now let's watch a little intro video for the Seattle Mariners Mount Rushmore.
The Seattle Mariners, Felix Hernandez, the 2-2. He got it! 34 years, 119 games. It's finally happened. A perfect game by a Seattle Mariner. It was done by the King. Felix.
And the right-hander forward delivers again. There's a high fly ball hit to deep left field. This one is way back, and that one is gone. A home run, a grand slam, and Todd Froward is really upset about that previous pitch. Martinez is just now rounding third, and Seattle has gone ahead. Froward is going after Larry Barnett, and no doubt.
Say I was there when Ken Griffey Jr. made his home debut. So don't forget that on Monday night. There's a fly into the gap in left center field and deep left center field. And Emerson's not going to get to it. It's off the base of the wall. Griffey to second base in his first major league at bat. A ringing double off the 375.
Man, that gives me some goosebumps watching all that. Some fantastic Mariners history. Let's take a look at the Seattle Mariners Mount Rushmore that we came up with. Honestly, I don't think there's a lot of debate. I even had a couple of group chats with some people and asked them what their Mariners Mount Rushmore would be, and they came up with pretty much the same names. Obviously, we got Edgar Martinez, Felix Hernandez, El Duque. No, she's not El Duque. Who am I talking about? Ichiro, and obviously Ken Griffey Jr. Obviously, we agreed on this list. I don't think there's any 4. Obviously, you could argue Alex Rodriguez. Some people would argue maybe Randy Johnson. Jay Buhner can be thrown in there. But I think we got the list right, Hack. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'd say the only one is Jay Buhner, you could argue. But when I say him compared to Edgar Martinez, all right, let's go. I want to irritate some Red Sox fans here. Edgar Martinez is the best DH to ever play baseball. Like, I don't care about the World Series ring. I don't care about all that, because when we talk about baseball players, we don't talk about rings. We talk about on the field. I don't know if Edgar Martinez, you remember him, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Absolutely. I used to go to Mariners games all the time with Dan Wilson, Edgar Martinez. I went to A-Rod, Griffey. I saw them all, man. That was a great time to be a Mariners fan.
King Felix, El Duque.
I know. I don't know why that came out of my mouth. I'm thinking of Hernandez from the Yankees. What's his face?
I get Randy Johnson, but he was like, there's people. Let's be honest. Randy Johnson's a Diamondback. He's not a Mariner. He had a couple years there. Yeah. But like, Felix Hernandez didn't leave. That's his Seattle he's the best pitcher the Mariners have ever had. He's their team legendary. And the last 2, I mean, like, if anybody says Ichiro and Ken Griffey Jr. isn't the Mariners Mount Rushmore, then I question your baseball. Like, do you watch baseball? I don't understand.
Honestly, people I think forget how good Edgar Martinez was. Edgar Martinez is the current Seattle Mariners hitting coach, which is probably explaining why things are starting to go a little bit better for them. But he was a 2019 Hall of Fame inductee. He played for the Mariners from 87 to 2004. He's the Seattle Mariners career leader in average at 312, hits at 2,200, doubles at 514, career leader in walks at 1,283, and games played for the Mariners at 2,055. So this dude was a Mariner through and through. There were years where he was on the team, where he was on the same team as Ken Griffey Jr. He was on the same team as A-Rod, Randy Johnson. Like, Dan Wilson catching. Like, there were so many teams that this core was on that I feel like should have brought a World Series title home to Seattle. And it's shocking that they didn't. But, Felix Hernandez, 169, 136 win-loss record, career ERA of 3.42. Dude, in 2009, probably his best season, he finished second in Cy Young, arguably should have won it. He had 19-5 record, a 2.49 ERA, and pitched over 238 innings, something that you're not going to see pitchers nowadays doing at all. And then, of course, Ichiro, his rookie season was also the Seattle Mariners' 116-win season. Coincidence? I think not. Dude was an absolute stud. He had 3,000 hits in Japan and 3,000 hits stateside. And dude had 10 consecutive 200-hit seasons, which is an MLB record from 2001 to 2010. He also holds the most single-season hits record at 262, which he did in 2004. This dude was an absolute on-base machine. And then obviously you got Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, what can you say? Ken Griffey Jr. is kind of like Kobe Bryant of basketball, where it's like when you get up to the plate, who are you imitating? You're not kids Kobe from three. You're imitating Ken Griffey Jr. at the plate. You're trying to imitate that sweet swing of his. Ken Griffey Jr. is probably one of the purest baseball players I've ever seen with my own eyes. I got the chance to see him multiple times live, and just a great dude overall. A great hitter, home run derby champion, multi-time All-Star. Like I said, this is a fantastic Seattle Mariners list. I don't think we got any of them wrong. If you have anyone else that you would throw in the Seattle Mariners Mount Rushmore, please throw it in the chat. Who are we missing out on? I think we got it right, Hack.
Yeah, and one just quick point. A lot of these, listen, I don't hold steroids against people, but all these players played in the steroid era without a whisper that they ever took PED, and they put up numbers. Like I said, I don't hold it against players. I still say Barry Bonds is the best player I ever saw with my eyes. I've never seen anybody.
Still allegedly. That's still alleged steroid use.
Like, these guys don't have any. You can look at Ichiro, Ken Griffey. You can look at all these men and understand that they didn't take PEDs, and they still put up. Like, it's crazy to me. You say Ichiro, 3,000 hits in both leagues. A major league, a professional baseball player with 6,000 hits. That's just mind-blowing numbers. It doesn't make sense how good. They have a great Mount Rushmore. When we get to the end of this, we're going to have to compare, Mount Rushmores against each other. But, this is a hard one to beat. The pitcher's a little weak, but you're talking about arguably the best center fielder, right fielder, and DH ever.
I am going to correct myself here because I'm a man of integrity. And I was wrong. Ichiro had 4,367 career hits in his major league career, and then 1,278 hits in the MPB in his previous league. So, yeah, dude had almost, 5,500 hits. So almost 6,000 hits between the two leagues, which is absolutely crazy. But, yeah, that's it. That's Mount Rushmore for the Seattle Mariners. Hack, who should we do next week? I'm feeling we're going to go through the West first, AL West first. Should we do the Rangers or should we do the Athletics next week?
Ooh,
I know.
I got a lot of good athletic hats, so we'll go with Oakland. So
okay. So next week,
hats throughout the show.
Next week we'll do the Mount Rushmore for the Oakland Athletics. Obviously, they are not the Vegas Athletics yet, so therefore they are being referred to as Oakland until then. But Hack, that's the show. We did it. We got through an hour. Talked some NL Central, talked some New York, talked the Mariners Mount Rushmore, got some back and forth in. I appreciate you tuning in, as always, on every Sunday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Hack, anything you want to say before we get these people some highlights and get them off for their weekend?
No, just enjoy baseball this week. I think we have some good matchups coming up. And hopefully next week we're still talking about the red-hot Detroit Tigers and the red-hot San Francisco Giants. I whisper it so I don't jinx your team.
Thank you for not jinxing it. What is it? We've gone over the East. We've gone over the Central. Let's mix it up next week. Let's jump over to the NL East for our divisional deep dive. Let's jump over to the NL East, talk some more Mets, talk some Phillies, Braves. Marlins, and of course, who am I forgetting?
We're talking for the Nationals, little James Wood,
Nationals.
Dylan Cruz. We got some
Dylan
young
Cruz
studs over there.
Finally heating up. We'll talk about more of the next week. We'll see you next week. Well, like I said, next week we'll have the Athletics, Mount Rushmore. We'll do a deep dive into the NL East, and who knows what might come up during the week that we can talk about. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of an outro video with some highlights from the week. Other than that, thank you for tuning in to Up and In on the Wide Wire Sports Network. We'll see you next week.
The first 2 nights of the series and drives one deep to right field. Look at this cruise missile on the second pitch of the game.
And get to work. Get to work.
Deep in the air to left. Riley Green to the Kepler.
Get to work.
Line. The glove of Acuna into right field.
Gotta move fast in the fast lane. Pretty young gasoline in the gas tank. Still true, still in the damn thing. Change. I can give no. I breeze down the I-5 with my shades up. Walk away what they say from the iPhone. Hey, sound discounted like a group. Paid attention, then expect a refund. I get it, I got it, I get it. I be the one really spitting. Now you must be really kidding. Goddamn it, where's the spirit? Goddamn it, where's the pride? I be like, God damn it, when I show up in the artist on the high. Y'all got me on another level. Foot all the way down on the pedal. I can't settle. Y'all rap so mellow, so I'm bringing out the ghetto. Bring the pain to the metal line. Cause you're so move fast and fast. Premium gasoline in the gas tank.